So, welcome everyone again to today's class. Today there's going to be a special package. It's going to be something different this time around. Something different from what we've been doing before in previous classroom. Today, we'll be looking at a different aspect and outpost of accounting called auditing. I know someone is very, very happy there. That is not costing today, is not MA today. But this time around, we're looking at an aspect of accounting called auditing and assurance. So, today we'll be looking at the topic or the subject, the broad subject called auditing. So, and if someone is interested there to know more about auditing, what it meant to be an auditor, what auditing entails. So today, LearnCity had provided the platform for you to know everything about auditing. Watch out, sit down, as I always say, get a snack, get a coffee, get a very good sitting apparatus. Sit down comfortably and enjoy the video. We'll actually be starting today's lecture by looking at the historical background of auditing. You know, most people actually sees an auditor as number one, an external person. Well, that's good. Or somebody that is actually around to catch a fraudster or to actually detect fraud. But in today's class, we'll be able to have a very good knowledge, better grasp of what an auditor is or what auditing entails. The evolution of auditing. What's the historical background of auditing? Where did auditing spawn from? Actually, the evolution of auditing dates back to the medieval ages. The traditional olden ages. You know, record have it that it was actually first introduced in the ancient Egypt and Rome. So, in the ancient Egypt, then, just as the history of accounting can be traced back to Egypt also. So in the ancient Egypt and Rome, then people are always employed to review works done by tax collector and estate manager. You know, in those days there are tax collectors, there are these tax people. You know, in the scripture, Bible was talking about Matthew the tax collector. But this time around, there are tax collectors, there are people that are actually in charge of revenue. Gathering of tax from the populace, from the people. But the government as at then, the people in power, they need to know, are these people, are they faithful in what they are delivering? Though it's not that they are actually perpetrating a fraud, but we just want to be sure. We want an external person to come and vouch, to vet what they are claiming to have made. Auditing. External party coming to attest to whatever is being claimed to have been made. So, a tax collector or an estate manager, to be precise, submits their return to an external individual which is employed to review whatever work or return they claimed to have made. So this actually can be traced back to the olden ages or the medieval ages of the ancient Egypt and ancient Rome. So also record have it that in the medieval Britons, in the olden days, the Britons also adopt this approach whereby an independent person was employed by the feudal barons. You know, in those days, those people in charge of politics, in charge of government. Some of them are more at times referred to as maybe feudal barons or whatever name they could be called. So an independent person was actually employed by them to ensure that returns from tenant farmers, feudal barons, those are kind of period in which there is all this capitalized economy. There are landlords, there are people that owns a land that actually sublet it to tenants, to farmers, to make use of those land and then remit a kind of return to them. So these feudal barons employs the service of an independent person. Always note in the definition of an audit, independent is actually number one domain thing in what makes an audit an audit. For an audit to be an audit, there must be independent. So an independent person are being employed by these feudal barons just to ensure that the returns claimed by tenant farmers are accurately reflecting the revenue received from the estate. So, in other words, the historical background of audit can be traced to the ancient Britain, the ancient Egypt, and the ancient Rome. Then, what is auditing? And auditing can be defined as a process carried out by an appointed qualified person or body whereby the records and financial statements of an entity are subjected to independent examination in such detail as will enable the auditor form an opinion as to the truth and fairness of the financial statements. It seems to be a bit long. Let me break it down for you. Auditing, is a process. It is actually an exercise carried out by an appointed person, qualified, independent, external, to actually assess the record or the financial statement of an organization, of an entity, of a firm, such that the auditor, the external person, the auditor, the independent person, the auditor, qualified person that has been appointed will be able to form an opinion, will be able to see to it, will be able to attest to the truthfulness and the fairness of the financial statement. So this is the definition of auditing, a process carried out by an appointed person, qualified, in such a way that the record, the financial statement of the entity are actually subjected to test by the person, such that the auditor will be able to form an opinion as to the truthfulness and the fairness of the financial statement. So, in this definition, you need to note some key things. There are some words, there are some phrases that are key in that definition. Number one is an audit is an independent examination. Independent. One of those things that violates or breaches an audit is when independence is impaired. When the independence of the auditor is actually impaired, the auditor will not be able to express an objective view of the financial statement. So we say the independent examination is one of those things that is key in the definition of auditing. Number two, audit is carried out by a suitably qualified person. Somebody that is suitably qualified. You know, for somebody to be an auditor must belong to a professional body. You know, could be an accounting graduate, that's good. Must also belong to a professional body, Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, for ICANN in Nigeria. Professional body like ACCA, Associate Certified Chartered Accountants, or CFA, Certified Forensic Auditor. So, anyone that is going to carry out the official and the professional obligation of an auditor must somebody that is qualified, suitably qualified. Number 3 is record and financial statements. You know, that is what the auditor is to come and attest to and to actually vet its accuracy, its truthfulness, and its faithfulness, if it's actually revealing the true and the current position of the firm. Number 4 is opinion. You know, the end result of an audit is what we call a report. You know, the last stage of every audit, the last purpose of an audit is to formulate an opinion, which is to be expressed in a report to the shareholders or whoever is appointing the auditor. And lastly is a true and fair view. So these are the key words, phrases, and technical terminologies that must not be missed in the definition of auditing. So I want to believe you've been able to learn something, at least an introduction to auditing.